Chapter 3. The Horse Behind the Fireplace. Emma was sitting on the couch by the fireplace. Crackling wood logs burned with a bright orange flame, giving off a nice heat and creating a homey feeling in the room. She was tired, and her entire body ached, but it was a good tired. The clatter of dishes in the kitchen told her that her dad had started cleaning up out there. There was no dishwasher in this old place, so they'd agreed to take turns doing the dishes. She glanced around the room. Now that all the furniture was in place, the living room didn't seem so unpleasant anymore. Quite the contrary, it was pretty cozy in here. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to live here for a year after all. Just the thought of Troy and all the nice days they would spend together gave her a tingle of excitement inside. But I sure wish Mom weren't going to be away for so long, she thought with a quiet sigh, suddenly sensing that tears weren't far away. She swallowed irritably. Tears weren't going to help any. Her mom wouldn't come home any sooner if she sat here weeping all night. Maybe she should just go to bed. But she stayed where she was. It was so nice and warm here, and it gave her peace to look into the dancing flames. Emma gave a sudden start. What in the... Was she asleep, or was she awake? The fireplace, the sparkling fire, it had all vanished. Instead, Emma saw a rather dark, but still pleasant-looking stable with 3 stalls on each side of a narrow aisle. The stable was empty. No, wait, it wasn't. From the center stall on the left, a horse's head suddenly appeared above the door. It was a big bay horse with a powerful, good-looking head. A white star adorned its forehead. The horse snorted quietly and looked straight at her. Emma blinked and shook her head, bewildered. The wooden log was burning as before in the fireplace. She must have dozed off. There was no other explanation. Of course there was no horse behind the fireplace. How could there be? "Hey, are you still up?" Her dad came into the room. "It was so quiet in here, I was sure you must have gone to bed." "Apparently I fell asleep for a moment, because I thought I saw a horse over there." Emma pointed toward the fireplace. It was standing in a stable, a bay horse with a white star on its forehead, and it looked at me. Her dad laughed. "Well, obviously you're seeing horses all over the place," he said indulgently. "Isn't Troy enough for you?" He scratched his head as he added, "It's kind of funny, though, that you would dream you saw a horse right there. Did you see the old photo album, maybe?" "What album?" Emma looked at him, not understanding what he was referring to. "I found an album with some old pictures last night. Wait, I'll go and get it, then you can see for yourself." Her dad disappeared and came back carrying a thick photo album. It was dented and cracked along the back and looked really old. He opened the album, carefully turning the stiff, yellowed pages. "There," he said. "You see that?" The picture showed the house the way it must have looked many, many years ago. The house itself was not that different from the current house, but there was something that was entirely different. The house was connected to a lower building. Emma remembered the rocks outside. She had actually been thinking they must have been the remains of some old foundation wall, and apparently she was right. There was no doubt what kind of building it was, either. In front of a wide double door stood a man holding the reins of a sturdy, light-colored horse. Next to him stood a girl with her hand on the shoulder of a big, much darker horse. She looked like she might be about Emma's age, with a kind of solemn and stubborn look on her face, as if she disliked being photographed. Emma felt an unpleasant shudder down her spine. Even though the picture was black and white, she was quite sure that the dark horse was bay. Its beautiful head with the white star was unmistakable. This was the horse she'd just seen a moment ago. The horse behind the fireplace. So there actually had been a stable right there, just the way she'd seen it. But how was that possible? How could she have known? She'd never been here before, and never seen the picture of the horse. "Emma? Emma, what is it? Emma, talk to me. You're not fainting, are you?" Her dad's worried voice sounded like it came from far away. Emma felt numb and strange throughout her whole body. The room was spinning around her, and she felt nauseated. Had she seen a ghost? The ghost of a horse? No, it wasn't possible. Emma didn't believe in ghosts, not at all. There had to be another explanation for this. Maybe she'd heard about the stable after all, but she couldn't remember it. Her parents had talked so much about this house before they decided to rent it for a year. Emma had tried to close her ears to all their talking because she didn't want to move, but obviously something must have sneaked past her ears anyway. And then she dreamt about this horse. Yes, that must be it. Emma took a deep breath and lifted her head. "I'm fine now," she said. "It was just that, for a moment, I almost thought I'd seen a ghost. The ghost of a horse." She tried to laugh it off, but her laughter didn't sound very natural. Her dad sat down beside her. "I'm not going to pretend that I understand how it's possible that you could have known about a horse and a stable you've never seen before," he said. "But I'm sure it has a natural explanation, and someday we'll find out how it happened. I know one thing, though. I don't believe in ghosts or haunted houses. Ghosts are simply products of startled imaginations. Don't you agree?" Emma nodded, but she wasn't nearly as sure anymore. In the city, it was easy to laugh at people who claimed to have seen ghosts. But out here in the country, when darkness entered the house from all directions and the forest was a black wall against the night sky, it didn't seem so hard to believe inexplicable things could happen. Emma shuddered again, wishing she were in the well-lit streets back home. If something scary happened there, you could just open the window and cry for help, and half the neighborhood would come running. Out here she could cry until the moon fell down without anybody hearing her. Emma had never been afraid of the dark before, but when she walked up the stairs to her room a little later, she thought that every step made a spooky creak, and she had this weird feeling that somebody was close by, watching her. She tried to tell herself that it was only her imagination, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Because if a dead horse could show himself to her, then couldn't people do it too? Emma thought about the girl with the solemn, stubborn look on her face. Was she in the house right now? Was she sneaking around in the dark, just waiting for Emma to go to sleep? And when Emma went to sleep? Emma shook her head at her own silliness. What was the matter with her? She was jumpier than a kitten catching the scent of a monstrous pit bull. She'd better get a grip on herself. There was nothing dangerous in the house, or outside either. She had let her imagination get completely out of hand. But no matter how much Emma tried to reassure herself, she couldn't shake the unpleasant feeling. The dark seemed like an enemy where anything could be hiding. For the first time since she was little, Emma decided to sleep with a nightlight on. She curled up under the covers, trying to relax, but sleep wouldn't come. Here she was, in an unfamiliar house, where she had seen something for which there was no natural explanation, regardless of what her dad said. Because even if she might have heard her parents talk about an old stable, it wasn't possible for her to have known in advance exactly what the horse looked like. It just wasn't possible. She had to accept that. And the only other explanation... No. She refused to keep thinking about ghosts and other scary stuff right now. She was in her room, where she was safe, the light was on, and her dad was only a few steps away. Nothing bad could happen. Emma forced herself to think about Troy. It was nice and safe to think about him. She closed her eyes and started planning what she would do the next day. As soon as she came home from school, she would go for a ride, maybe over to that big pond someone in class had told her about. There was supposed to be a public trail to it, and apparently you could go horseback riding on it. If there weren't too many people on the trail, she might even be able to take Troy for a good gallop.